Hi, I'm Dale, and not only am I still in the closet, I'm about to air some of our dirty laundry. The last couple episodes of my closet reorg, I built out the cabinets of my closet for all the hanging of clothes and setting of drawers. In this episode, I'm going to take care of this space here, and I'm going to build a chest of drawers with two very deep drawers so that I can use those for our dirty laundry hamper. Along with that, I still need to make sure that I can access this door for our crawl space attic storage area. So I'm going to put these on wheels so that I can be sure to easily pull this out to when I need to get to this and roll it back in. But I don't want the wheels to show, so I'm going to try to hide them as best I can. I hope you stick around. Come on, let's go.
I adopted this cute little guy from Craigslist. I realized that I'm not flattening the 2x4s, just making them parallel, but I am cleaning up the faces and the edges. I have to say, for only $120, this planer has changed my life. I would normally have used my table saw for doing this. Using the planer is much faster and easier. I repeated this for all four sides of my 2x4s to clean them up and remove the rounding edges. Next, I find the most non-level area of my driveway to set up my chop saw. I went for maximum wobble here, folks. Once I found that perfect uneven spot, I cut my 2x4s down to size. These will be used for the structure of my cabinet box. Because this cabinet will be very specific to my space, you'll need to measure yours to get all the correct sizes. Just don't forget to take into consideration the width of your plywood that will be attached to the outside of this structure. Now to assemble the top and bottom supports. I know a lot of people do not like pocket holes. Personally, I don't know why they don't like them. I think they're great and they definitely have their place. But for the sake of those that do not like pocket holes, I'm not going to use them. Instead, I'm going to use this cool blue jig that allows me to make angled holes so that I can use special screws to join two boards together. I have some leftover 3/16 inch sheets that I want to use for the back of my cabinet. Unfortunately, none of them are wide enough, so I ripped different sheets so that I can put them together for the width I need for the back. You're never going to see this, so I was not worried about having a seam. I realized that these deep drawers filled with clothes, I'm going to need a way to keep it from falling over when they're open. Because this also needs to roll in and out, I don't want to attach it to the wall, so I decided that I needed to get as much weight in the back as possible. So I'm taking the 3/16 inch plywood and laminating two pieces together to give me a 3/8 inch thick back piece. This should give a good bit of weight to the back of the cabinet. When laminating two larger sheets together, you will most likely not be able to get clamps to the innermost places. Use weights or whatever else you have to make sure that you get good pressure between the sheets over the entire sheet. You can see I used clamps, cauls, weights, paint buckets, whatever else I had to ensure a good glue up. Even if you think yourself not worthy, try whatever you have access to. And yes, I am worthy. Now that the base structure is complete, I thought it'd be a good idea to bring it upstairs and test fit it, because all of the other measurements are going to be based off of the measurements of this. So I thought, test fit it, make sure that it fits nicely with plenty of room on the sides for my 3/4 inch plywood. So as long as I measured everything correctly, it should just slide right in, and it doesn't. It's too big. What the f? How in the heck could this have gone wrong? Where the heck was my tape measure? Let me remeasure. I measured this 31¼ inches, but I wrote down 34¼ inches. Okay, mistakes happen, no big deal. When they happen to you, just follow what I did. Stay calm, don't overreact, no big deal. This is an easy fix. I just have to rip off 1 1/8 inches off of each side, no big deal. Let me show you how I fixed it. In my handling of my mistake in a completely calm and zen-like manner, I forgot to record the fix. No big deal though, I simply ripped off a bit of each side of the structure and now it fits like a glove. Moving on to the next step, I need to cut out the two sides, the top and the bottom. Along with that, I need to cut the bottom piece of the front that will help hide the wheels. I do this on my table saw. My table saw fence does not allow me to cut as wide of a piece as I need for the sides, so I set the fence to the waist amount and keep the side to the left of the blade. If you have to do this, be careful to take the blade kerf into consideration on your measurements. I find it much easier to put the edge banding on each piece before assembly, so I do that now for all edges that will be visible. When I apply iron-on edge banding, I also go over about 10 inches or so at a time, then follow that up using a small hardwood block to go over it rather than a roller. For me, I tend to get a much better bond using a hardwood block rather than the roller. Once applied, I give it a few minutes to cool down, and then I use my edge clipping tools to first take off any excess length, and then I glide down the sides to flush up the banding. These tools are pretty cheap and do a great job. This time I will use pocket holes, so I grab the completely different blue jig and drill pocket holes in the bottom structure that will allow me to attach the sides and the bottom front. I want to make sure that the edges of the back piece are not visible at all, so I cut rabbets in the back edge of both sides. This way, the back piece will be able to fit inside of those rabbets for a strong connection and the edges will not be visible. I use my router for this. Originally, I planned on using the 2x4 structures for the top and bottom. After rethinking this, I really only need it for the bottom to give a place to attach the casters. I can simply connect the sides directly to the top with pocket holes, so I drill some pocket holes on the inside top of both side pieces. The bottom front piece will be attached directly to the bottom 2x4 structure, but I want to attach it directly to the sides as well, so I drill a couple pocket holes on each side of the small front piece. It's finally time to start assembling. I begin with the small front piece. I start by smearing glue on the front of the 2x4 structure. Once I have that covered, I lay it down to make it easier for me to attach. Notice I clamped a stop block on one side. That will make it easier to get flush on the sides. I line up the small front piece and clamp it in place, then I simply drive in the pocket screws. Next, I move on to assembly of the sides. Just like the front, I start by getting good coverage of glue on the base. Don't forget to spread glue on the edges of the small front piece as well. Then use clamps to hold the sides in place. Use a square when setting the clamps to make sure that the side pieces are set up square to the bottom. Also, take care to make sure that the bottom of the side is flush with the bottom of the front piece. Once you have it clamped in place, complete the joint by driving home the pocket screws. Don't forget to drive in the screws to attach the small front piece to the side as well. You'll now see how I plan on hiding the casters. I have extended the front and sides below the 2x4 base about 3 inches. I measured the height of my casters, and by having the front and sides extend about 3 inches below, that should do a nice job in hiding the casters, yet allow them to do their job. Do this for both sides. While the back will be fit inside the rabbets on the sides, it will rest just underneath the top. So that the back will have some support at the top, I attach a scrap strip to the underside of the top, leaving room for the back piece. This will allow me to attach the back to the strip for a secure fit. You'll not be able to see the strip once it's assembled. Now to complete the basic box by attaching the top to the sides. Simply clamp in place, spread some glue, and drive home the pocket screws. Make sure that you are attaching the top so that the scrap strip we just attached is in the back of the cabinet. Then, when securing the top to the other side, choose about the worst camera angle you could possibly choose so that anyone watching this video will not be able to see what you're doing. That's a content provider free pro tip for you all. To make sure the box stays square, I'm going to attach the back. I first trim it to final size using my ghetto track saw, add some glue, and nail in place. This will add a ton of strength to the cabinet and ensure that it will stay square. Attaching the casters is easy. Turn the case upside down and screw in each caster into the 2x4 base. These are set casters, not swivel casters. The reason is I want them to line up so that it's easy to pull the cabinet straight out and push it straight back in. Now that I have the basic box created, I now can measure the inside to get exact measurements for the shelf and the deep hamper drawer. Once I take those measurements and I'm sure about them, I cut the remaining pieces from what is left in my plywood sheets. I'm going to have just one large and deep drawer that will have a divider in the center of the drawer to create two sides of the drawer. Off camera, I drill pocket holes to the front and back of the drawers, as well as putting on the edge banding to the top of the drawers because that's what will be visible. I'll be attaching a false front to the drawer, which will hide those pocket holes in the front, and you'll not be able to see the pocket holes that are in the back of the drawer. I'm using these nice Rockler corner clamps, which I purchased with my own money, as well as pocket hole clamps to hold the sides in place while I screw them in. I spread a layer of glue into the joints to help make the drawer even stronger. The only thing left is to drive home the screws. Adding the inside piece to split the drawer into two sections is as easy as inserting it, lining it up with a square, and brad nailing it into place. Attaching the bottom really could not be much easier. Turn the drawer upside down, spread a layer of glue, and place the bottom into place. I use a few brad nails to hold it in place while I countersunk pilot holes and secured with screws. Once the bottom is attached, the drawer is basically done. Nothing fancy here, folks. I know that installing these drawer runners can be stressful when you have not done too many. I've not done too many either, so it is definitely stressful for me. I found a good way that works for me is to cut a spare piece of wood to the height you want to install the runner. Then clamp on a piece of scrap flush against the front of the cabinet. That piece should be the same thickness as the drawer front you'll be using. You can set the drawer slide on the template and slide against the scrap flush to the front. Then you can attach the runner to the sidewall. Use the same templates on the other side so you will be certain that they are installed level to each other. I use a self-centering Vicks bit to drill pilot holes and make sure that the screws that I'm using are not too long to poke out the sides. I found a heavy-duty drawer slide that's been sitting in my garage for a long time, and I'm happy I finally get to use it for something. This is supposed to hold something like 150 pounds or so. That should be way more than enough to hold a pile of dirty clothes. Now to attach the drawer slide to the drawer. Place scrap wood on the cabinet bottom to use as a spacer. I'm using 1/2 inch. Set the drawer on the spacers inside the cabinet. Allow it to hang out of the cabinet just a few inches. Pull the drawer slide out and flush it against the front of the drawer. Drill a pilot hole and secure with a screw. Do the same thing on the other side. Now, carefully pull the drawer out a few more inches to expose the next screw hole. Drill a pilot hole and secure with a screw. Once you have 2 screws on each side, you can pull the drawer completely out and put in the last screw on each side. That's it. Now just put the drawer back in the drawer and it is installed. This drawer is large and heavy, so installing it back while I left it on my bench and on non-locking casters was a bit tough. Next time, I'll put it on the ground. I'm using paint stir sticks for the spacers to evenly center the drawer front. Once centered, I use clamps to hold it in place while I secure it with screws from the inside. Because it is such a large front, I use 3 screws on each of the 2 sides of the drawers to hold it on. I'm using these jigs that are actually for installing drawer slides to hold the shelf in place. Simple pocket hole screws to secure it. I make sure the pocket holes are on the bottom of the shelf so they will not be seen. I'm going to need a way to hook the hamper bags to the inside of the drawer. I thought about buying rope cleats, but I can simply use 8 small pieces of scrap to cut a dado in. Once I secure to each inside corner, I should be able to loop the hamper bags around them. I'm only using screws to secure them in case they break or simply don't work. Spoiler alert, they work great. Only thing left now is to roll it into place. It rolls in and out pretty easily, just like I wanted.
Well, here it is. We've been using this for quite a while now, and I gotta say we love it. We think it looks a lot nicer than simply having a dirty clothes hamper in our closet. Having the 2 side-by-side clothes bags inside of here really helps us out a lot for pre-sorting our dirty clothes. We can put darks or towels on one side and lights on the other. Saves a lot of time for laundry. One thing I did have to do though was add some weight to the back at the bottom, as when both sides were full of clothes, it did make it easy to tip. It would not immediately tip, but it didn't take much of a bump to have it fall forward. Adding a few pounds to the back did the trick. Now when it's open completely full, even full of clothes, it doesn't tip at all. Like, share, comment on the bottom with any questions or if you think I did something wrong or just for anything. Until next time, yeah.